Yep, look at it.
Hi! Let's do this.
Welcome back, motherfuckers, to another episode of Rock Isn't Dead, It's Just Sleeping with yours truly, Willie Whitebread.
Mark the audio slave.
Last week, we had Renegade Rick Lane on with us to do a little bit about the origins of metal, and I think we vastly underestimated the size of the subgenres of this group of musicians.
It's a lot of talking. It's a lot of talking about that metal.
A lot of talking about these metal motherfuckers around here. So, we decided to do this week's episode on thrash metal. Let's go into a little bit of what thrash metal is, where it started, what it's about, and what it constitutes. Shall we?
Yeah, but we shall do it.
We shall. So thrash metal began in Southern California, and you've got the big four bands. The big four bands, when you hear thrash metal, speed metal, you think of the big four. You think about Anthrax, you think about Slayer, you think about Megadeth, and you think about Metallica. Am I right or am I right?
You are right.
Yes, okay. In case you're wondering where the term thrash metal came from, it was coined by a journalist named Malcolm Dome from Kerrang! Magazine in one of their issues in 1984, and they were talking about one of Anthrax's song, actually, called Metal Thrashing Mad. It was off of their Fistful of Metal album.
Interesting.
So that's kind of where thrash metal came from, which is interesting. And so I guess thrash metal, the whole bring about of thrash metal was obviously it was influenced by the bands that we talked about last week. Mm-hmm. Deep Purple, Blue Cheer, Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, kind of that the heavier toned guitars.
They just brought it up a notch.
Well, they wanted, like we were talking about, it's the same thing that almost every subgenre, other than probably in the last 5-10 years, they want it faster, stronger, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they wanted, faster, harder, stronger. And what was that little quip about that? What was that?
Oh, that was a
Kanye West?
No. I'll think of it. Keep going.
And interesting enough, some of the other 70s bands had a little bit of a thrash thing going on. I don't know if any of you guys out there have ever heard this song by Queen, Stone Cold Crazy, off their 1974 Sheer Heart Attack album.
Yeah.
You've heard that?
Oh, yeah.
That was really, that was said to be one of the first thrash metal songs to ever come out. They considered that thrash metal.
They pioneered it.
Yeah, they pioneered it.
Good for them.
And funny enough, too, is in the 1990s, I think it was 1992, James Hetfield from Metallica actually joined the surviving members of Queen and Tony Iommi at a Freddie Mercury benefit show. Maybe not a benefit show, maybe a tribute show.
Probably a tribute.
Yeah, tribute show. And they covered that song, which I think is pretty fucking cool.
And they also put that on the B-side of their Enter Sandman single cassette that I had bought back in the old, when Black first came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the B-side, Stone Cold Crazy.
Wow.
And it was tight.
Yeah, and you know what? The instrumentals of that song don't sound very different from Queen's version and Metallica's version. Obviously, there's a little bit more distortion.
Right, yeah.
But the speed, the melodies, the bridges, the choruses, they're all almost exact.
Yeah.
And which is cool, because you would never think Queen would produce something like that.
Yeah, they surprised everybody with a lot of stuff.
Right.
Back in those days.
Right.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, that operatic stuff.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned something last week that I mentioned.
Oh, let me stop you. Daft Punk was that reference.
Daft Punk.
That was the reference
There
we were
we
looking
go.
for.
There we go. I never really got much into them. I don't know much about them. They had one of my favorite 4-letter words in there, punk, but I never really listened. What kind of music are they?
Electronic.
That's why I never go.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned a band last week that I haven't actually heard much of, Diamond Head, right?
No, it would be King Diamond.
Oh, King Diamond. That's
Right.
who you were talking about.
Right. That's one of the founding metal godfathers.
Yeah, well, I mean, maybe I got it mixed up, but I looked up a little bit about a band, Diamond Head. Have you ever heard of them?
No, I haven't.
They were an English metal band. They were formed in, I think it was 76, and they followed along kind of with the British metal movement. But they threw a lot more heavy thrashing guitar in there than the other British metal guys that were coming through at that time in the early mid, and throughout the entire 70s pretty much. Def Leppard, Saxon, Judas Priest, and Iron Maiden, and also Raven.
Mm-hmm.
Raven was a big influence on them as well. And I think it all is very interesting to me because I didn't know too much about the metal scene. I mean, I knew I liked it and all that kind of stuff, but I didn't know kind of the lineage behind it. And it's interesting enough that these bands and these movements were doing the same exact thing that was happening since the early '60s. It was the British movement, and it was the U.S. movement,
right?
Then it was the U.S. movement. Then it was the British movement.
Mm-hmm.
They did it with the classic rock. They did it with the psychedelic stuff. They did it with punk rock.
Right. Like we were talking about last week, they take the American bands and send them to Britain to make it in Britin before they can come back to the States and make it here.
Right.
So it was kind of like reverse Britain invasions with American bands.
That's what they did with Hendrix too.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like,
it's kind of a little bizarre.
Oh well, if they like you over there, then I guess you can come back and we'll like you here.
Seriously.
That's how it was.
I was watching a bunch of documentaries about thrash metal, and there's this band Hyrax that was doing that. They were mad that they didn't go to Britain. They're like, "Fuck, man, we should have gone to England."
That's where
and
it was
recorded,
happening. Yeah.
and then came back over here but over there in England, they were scooping up every fucking thing they could get.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they were coming hard and fast.
They were, we want American bands here. We want American bands touring around England.
Right. And I think it's because they didn't have a blues movement.
Well, I don't think it was just, like, they were centered in England, but they probably did, like, a whole little European tour thing, like small time, tours.
Yeah.
It had Germany, Norway, all the metal.
Well, that's where a lot of the our first thrash metal guys that we're talking about, Metallica, that's where they started. That's where they started. I mean, they did a couple small tours here in the U.S. when Kill 'Em All came out, but for the most part, they were touring over there. Mm-hmm. Especially Megadeth. Megadeth was over there a lot.
Yeah. Did you see what Dave Mustaine just said about on an article I saw last night? I guess he's, because he's got his his medical situation going on.
What's wrong with him?
He's got throat cancer.
Oh,
pretty bad.
Probably from doing that for fucking 30 years.
Well, he was saying, like, he really wished he can get all the years back that he put out on touring and just being on the road, because he feels like he lost a lot of life.
No, he lost a lot of life because he shot fucking $2 million worth of smack.
Of course,
for 30 fucking years.
Of course,
which is why
he chain smoked on top of it.
Yeah, don't give me that fucking bullshit. I wish I wouldn't have toured the world with all these fantastic
and made all this money.
You whiny fuck.
So what would you rather have done, Dave? Just sat in a gutter and done your heroin?
Yeah, right. You whiny fuck. Everybody gets all self-righteous when
I was just telling you the title of the article that he was talking about.
Well, and we're going to get into this a little bit with Megadeth and Metallica and stuff like that, but like after researching all of these guys the way that I did, and listening to their documentaries and their interviews and things like that, Dave Mustaine was an asshole.
Yeah, that's probably why he was booted from Metallica.
That's exactly why he was booted from Metallica. He was a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
And they got sick of his violence and his drug abuse and his alcohol. I mean, the dude couldn't even fucking record.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he couldn't even be.
And then he was trying to be the boss of the band on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is my band.
Yeah, could you imagine that? Somebody coming in all sloppy fucking drunk. This is my fucking band. Yeah, dude.
You don't like it, you leave.
Yeah, dude, you can't even hold down a fucking soda.
Yeah.
Much less a band. Get the fuck out. You know?
Right.
Get out. But anyway, so moving a little bit forward, Motorhead. We didn't talk much about them last time.
That me.
Fucking Lemmy, dude.
Tell you what, Motorhead was, they were kind of like the same time that they were getting big. The skateboarding was getting big in America.
Oh, yeah.
And all the skaters, all they wanted to listen to all day long was punk and thrash metal. You know? I mean,
they were all synonymous.
If it was 1990, you open a Thrasher magazine, you would see a giant Motorhead.
Motorhead.
Available now, Motorhead.
Right.
So, like, that was a big part of their fan base was the skateboarders.
And I think that's really funny too, because they were so different yet so much the same that they almost had like a deep-rooted hated respect for each other.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They were like, "Fuck you," but I understand you.
See, then skateboarding kind of evolved into what it is today, and now it's kind of like Post Malone and
well, back
a lot of rap stuff.
Yeah, back then skateboarding was huge.
Oh, dude. If you didn't skate, then you were kind of a dork. I mean, honestly, if you were either a jock, a skateboarder, skate rats as we call them.
Yeah. Well, that was kind of the same even in my era of growing up, the late 90s and the early 2000s, that skateboarding was still huge, dude.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't skate, you weren't shit.
Like when I first started skateboarding, it was before the skateboard, the decks had the double, sided.
Oh, yeah, you were back in,
noses.
like, the Tony Alva and Stacy Peralta days and
Correct,
shit. The
yes.
Lords of Dogtown, that's where you were coming through.
Yeah. My first board was a Nuke Boy, and it was a picture of this little baby coming out of like a hole in the wall, and it was all like punk, like a mohawk and shit.
Yeah.
And it had like rails on the side and a big tail on the one side. It was heavy as shit.
Oh, yeah.
But it was Powell Peralta.
Yeah, Powell Peralta, man. That's probably what World Industries turned into, all that like cartoony shit that they used to do.
Mm.
But yeah, man, Motorhead was huge, and they're actually considered to be the godfathers of the thrash metal scene. They were when it really took a turn, especially in the late 70s, interestingly enough, with their 1979 album, Overkill. That's the first time that the double bass got commercialized.
Oh, no shit.
I mean, I'm sure people were doing it.
Yeah.
But nobody was putting it on record, and you damn sure weren't buying an album at a record store.
Now, that was probably just two bass drums next to each other. That wasn't the actual double bass
Not
pedal.
the double bass pedal. No.
Yeah, gotcha.
No, it was Filthy Phil Taylor, man. That was their drummer, and it was actually on the song Overkill.
Okay.
And people lost their fucking minds. Could you imagine that? I mean, because that's something new, man. That's something real new.
Yeah.
Like, you're used to that
Right.
shit, you know, and then all of a sudden you get they're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Because that just gets your heart going, because, the drummer's the heart of the band. So you
Def Leppard can't do this.
Yeah, well, he's got two legs.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he just doesn't have two
Def
arms.
Leppard can do this.
Yeah, he can do this. He just can't do the thrashing around on the cymbals that as well as he used
I
to.
actually watched a little video the other day about him and how he uses his drums, and it's kind of interesting how many like different mechanisms he has to have,
I'm sure.
to compensate for a normal drummer.
Yeah, I just love that they kept him.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
that's what being in a band should be all about.
That's it.
That's
the perfect depiction. Like, where you got these guys like Megadeth and Anthrax and not so much Slayer, but Megadeth, Anthrax, and Metallica, they were throwing members around all fucking day long, especially Megadeth. Megadeth had like 16 different members in it.
Well, Mustaine was firing people left and right. This is my band, get out.
Yeah, my band, get out. Exactly. And to see somebody like hold the family dynamic within the band together, like the guys in Def Leppard did, that's something to respect, man.
Yeah.
That's really something cool. And the guy's a pretty good drummer.
I mean, there's tons of bands that do make it through. I mean, look at the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just all about the brotherhood, and if you can tolerate. Basically, I heard somebody famous, I forget who it was. They said if you can tolerate somebody for like 90% of the time and not want to kill them, then musically it will come. If it hasn't come yet, it's gonna blossom later.
It'll come naturally.
The most important part is can you live with that person on the road? That's the most important. And
can you have fun and go through the hard times?
They said if you weed through all the musicians out there, you'll find that there's only like 10% of the people left that you can actually live with on the road.
Right.
So that's how they whittle it down for new band members.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, I don't know that there's a whole lot of touring going on in modern music now. Do you think?
Oh yeah.
Is
crazy? Oh yeah. There's bands on tour all the time.
Is there?
What do you mean?
I don't mean. I just don't feel like it's like it used to be. Like the family dynamic behind it. I feel like there's so much technology and so much.
Oh, well, yeah.
I heard don't ask me where, I don't remember, but I heard this Panic at the Disco fucking quip. They're like, well, yeah, he likes to take the plane, where those two like to take a bus, and then this one just drives himself.
Yeah, there's no camaraderie.
That's
You're
what
right.
I mean. Not a whole lot of touring. I'm sure there's touring, but there's not like it wasn't like a family experience.
Because back then they didn't look at it like a business like they do today. Mm-hmm. They looked at it more like, let's just go show everybody what we got. Right. And that's what they did, and that's why they're so infamous.
Yeah. And that's what it takes, I guess. You just gotta. There's one thing to be into music, and there's one thing to completely say, fuck everything else in my life. My life revolves around music.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wake up, music. I eat lunch, music. I go to sleep, music.
Right.
Friday night comes, not partying, playing music. Partying while playing music. That's all they're doing is playing music, studying music, music theory. That's it.
Right.
I mean, I just don't know if there's much of that around anymore because everything that you hear nowadays has already been done. It's kind of like the same in the cinematic sense of like the cinema you see out today. What are the big companies, Disney, Sony? What are they putting out? They're putting out shit that already exists, just different renditions of it.
Right. It's
You
all
know what I mean?
regurgitated bullshit.
All regurgitated bullshit.
Even Tool's doing that.
Oh yeah, well, that's gonna be our album review, and I got a couple of fucking things to say about the new Fear Inoculum record.
Now, I had a guy about 10 years ago, a buddy of mine, his name is Don, and he was in a band, he created a band called Cypher.
Yeah.
And what he did is he copyrighted all the songs right off the bat. Everything's copyrighted. So he called me up one day and he's like, hey, would you like to be our second guitar player? So yeah, I was like, cool. So I went and I did a few jam sessions with him and we jammed pretty well. So then he pulled me aside. He goes, hey, would you be able to leave your family and go on tour with us, just like, here and there, for a month or two? I'm like, yeah, I don't see why not, as long as, we're all going to get paid. He's like, well, the thing is, we're all not going to get paid the same amount of money, and you're going to get paid this much, and I'm going to get paid this much. And I'm like, well, then I'm not really on board with that. And that's kind of like where I'm coming from with everybody looks at it like more of like a business,
Right.
Instead of like, being
Well,
just being out there and being original.
That's another thing too with being the new guy in the band. And you
Well,
probably
that
make a little
would
less.
have been fine, but he got into the whole thing like, well, all my songs are copyrighted, and so like this you'll never make more than this if you join the band for a full-fledged member. Like he was going in depth with it all. I'm like, dude, and they disbanded like probably like less than a year later.
Yeah.
They had T-shirts made and everything. And
Were they big?
They were no, they weren't. He took his mommy's money and made a nice album for like $8,000.
Yeah.
And then he thought he was going to be big, and I kind of thought so too. He had like a Billy Corgan type voice,
Yeah.
which was sounded good.
And when was this?
Oh god, it's probably about 15, 16 years ago now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, another thing too is when you have a family and shit, it's kind of difficult to do stuff like that. Like with these guys, like in Metallica and Megadeth and all these bands, they started when they were like 16 years old.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
Right.
they knew that they were going to make something of it by like 18, 19.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't have any bills and shit.
Right.
To jump into a band in like your mid-20s, late 20s.
And then just get like, oh well, we're going to pay you probably $200 a week, if that.
Yeah, well, I got light bills and shit.
Right.
Like, I gotta eat and shit. And medical insurance, like, nah.
Well, I'm just glad I didn't jump on that
Yeah,
bandwagon.
no shit. So anyway, so yeah.
Literally, the bandwagon.
The bandwagon. Yeah, pun completely intended. So, yeah, so during the same time, like I said, Motorhead was coming out, and that was the first, that was the thrash scene. You know what I mean? You heard
Right.
glimpses of thrash, where they pulled their influences from and stuff like that. But the first, like, this is thrash metal, Motorhead. Motorhead was fucking thrash metal.
Yeah, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what they wanted, and that's what they were the label of the scene,
Right.
And so, but see, also at the same time, there's a lot of different mechanics in the music industry going on at the same time that thrash metal was happening, right? Because you had the glam metal that was going on
Yeah.
in the mid late 70s. That was starting to surface, which was a rendition, and then that all happened because of stuff like we talked about last week. The showmanship and the theatrics of Kiss and Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
That met the vocals of the thrash metal guys and the scene of David Bowie and the New York Dolls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All that you got the theatrics in there, you got the sound, and then you've got the look, and all that slammed together.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got glam metal.
Yeah.
So you had glam metal going on at the same time, and on the other side of the fence, you had the hardcore punk kids, the Black Flag kids, the Dead Kennedys, Minor Threat.
Fugazi.
Yeah, Fugazi over here. You had them
Over
going
there.
on. Over there. Not over here, over there.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had that going on. And so I feel like with the glam metal stuff, the British metal movement,
Yeah.
and then the punk stuff,
Mhm.
all that combined into one, you mix it up and you drink your thrash metal.
And then Lemmy popped out with his moly on his face.
Yeah.
Here I am, let's do this shit.
Yeah. I feel like they were that whole band just got started with a bunch of guys sitting in the backyard just like, man,
Yeah. I'm sick of being a Hell's Angel. Me too, let's start a band.
yeah, start a band, motherfucker. This shit's dumb. Yeah.
We're gonna get killed.
Yeah, we're gonna get killed or killing. Kill getting killed. Man, that sounds good. Do it again. So
That's how I always pictured them starting out.
yeah,
Playing for like Hell's Angels parties and shit.
yeah, they're just out like the drummer just like stops flipping burgers for a second and runs over there.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's put two of these drums together.
Yeah. Oh man, that sounds cool too. But so yeah, I feel like that's exactly how it all began. And then you have a little band that comes out of Southern California, Huntington Beach, in 1981.
The Beach Boys?
No, but also funny you should mention that was also good for mentioning that. That was a big influence on heavy metal that we know today. Dick Dale.
Dick Dale, love
Dick
it.
Dale.
King of Surf.
King of Surf. His fucking licks. Who back then was playing that fast?
I don't know.
Nobody.
But it was horrible the way he went out.
Yeah.
If you know about that story.
Not much.
Well, he was in his 80s, and it was just last year, and he was still touring, even though he had stage 4 rectal cancer.
Rectal cancer.
He erected that rectal.
Rectal.
But he was forced to do that to pay for his meds and his hospital visits and all that stuff. So he couldn't stop touring, otherwise he would have died. You know, he would have died a lot sooner. It's kind of sad. And the Beach, go back to the Beach Boys. Did you know that Charlie Manson tried out for the Beach Boys?
No.
Yeah.
What?
He went to Brian Wilson's farm or whatever in California back when they were looking for another member.
What?
And, yeah, before the killings and before he went completely out of his board.
He's not going to be on trial. Hey, can I join the Beach Boys?
He did something at the farm. I forget what it was, but it was something that Brian didn't like. I don't know if it was like he pushed a dog away really rough or something like that. He was kind of just like turned off about his demeanor. And so, yeah.
Good call.
Yeah.
Good call there.
Bye, Charlie. We don't want you.
Yeah, great call. You know what? My aspirations led to the Beach Boys, but I think what I'm going to do now is make this 50-gallon drum full of bullshit Kool-Aid and try to get people to drink it.
That was David What's-His-Face.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Manson's the one that created the cult to try to get people to kill
He had the women go out and kill Sharon Tate.
That's right. Yeah, I get my killers mixed up.
You were thinking of Jonestown.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
the
right.
Jonestown
He wasn't the Kool-Aid guy. He was I'm going to get you to kill somebody guy.
Right. Hey, I didn't tell him to do it. They just wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, did he actually kill anybody?
He didn't. No.
So how did he go to jail?
Because he was the mastermind behind it all, and the cult leader and all that shit, and the influence, I guess, on these
I don't know. I didn't know
impressionable
you could go to
young
jail
women.
for
Yeah, dude,
influence.
there was a girl a couple years ago who went to jail. Remember, she was on the phone with her ex-boyfriend or something, and he was sitting in a car.
Yeah,
and
told
she's
him to
like,
kill him.
You should just do it. And then she went to jail.
Did she really?
She did. She did like a year and a half, and then she's out now, I believe.
Jesus Christ.
Yep.
But she's got in modern society, shit like that'll fuck you up because you got to put that shit on a resume. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Coerced boyfriend into ending own life. Well,
I'm just gonna put felony.
yeah, I'll just put felony real quick. Yeah. I have my giant jug of water.
For God's sakes, that thing's huge.
I know. That's what they all say.
Your jug of water.
Well, that too. But anyway,
On to the next.
So, 1981, a little band called Metallica forms in Huntington Beach, Southern California, with founding members James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Dave Mustaine, and Ron McGovney on bass. That was the one thing about
What happened to Ron McGovney?
Ron McGovney. He got booted in like '82. He decided it wasn't for me. He's like, I'm
gonna go to college.
No, well, yeah, pretty much. He wanted to get more into music production than actually playing the music. And so it was kind of like it was a mutual thing. It was a respected thing. It was like, I'm just gonna go, guys. This really isn't for me. Because if you can see anything, and you can say a lot about Metallica, and plus I have a lot of my own different opinions about Metallica and the way that they do things and the way that they've said things in the past. But there is one thing you can say about them: those guys are dedicated to their fucking music.
Oh yeah.
That's one thing you can give them. With all the bitching, and so they can act like pussies sometimes, but they were dedicated to their music.
And there was that time in the early 2000s where we're gonna break up because Lars doesn't know how to cope with James anymore.
Yeah, god damn it. Lars and James are like two fucking little kids.
But James always seems like the cool one, and Lars always seems like a little bitch.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. It's past my bedtime. So yeah, Ron McGovney. He only played with them for like '81, '82. This is like pre-Kill 'Em All.
That's when Cliff Burton.
Yeah. This is when they were still touring in clubs.
Ron Burgundy. No shit.
Yeah, Ron Burgundy. Ron McGovney. That's when they were still playing in clubs and shit in Southern California. So
San Diego.
San Diego, a whale's vagina. It's so shortly after that they met Cliff Burton at a show. I forget what band Cliff was playing with at the time. I forget.
Yeah, it's a band called Who Gives a Fuck.
Yeah, right. It was some. Well, I don't know.
Well, it might have been. Yeah,
It might have been a good one. I don't know. I just can't remember which one.
So
it
he
was.
left before Hetfield got there.
Who? No, Hetfield was founding.
No. I mean, before Mustaine got booted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So he was playing with Mustaine very shortly.
Okay.
Very shortly. And so Cliff Burton, actually Metallica played a show at, I forget what club it was, and they played with Cliff and his band, and they had been trying to recruit Cliff for like months.
Okay.
And finally Cliff was like, okay, because he mostly played in San Fran, like the Bay Area and shit.
Yeah.
He's like, I'll join your band, but you have to move up to the Bay Area, and this is where we jam. Because that's where the scene was exploding. Was
I'm
the Bay
like,
Area.
oh yeah, I guess that makes sense.
That's where all of them, because all these bands started off in Southern California, except for Anthrax. Anthrax started off in New York.
Yeah.
But, Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica, they all started in Southern California.
Okay.
And the big thrash metal movement was happening primarily in the Bay Area of California, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they move up there, they get Cliff, and then things start picking up. They start picking up the tours. They start not tours, but they start playing at the at local,
More venues.
Yeah, more
getting
venues.
paid more.
Yeah, exactly.
More regular executives, I'm sure, are coming to the shows.
Right.
And getting noticed.
You're right, and that's one night they were playing over there in San Fran, and a concert promoter, John Zazula, who had just recently self-financed and formed his a new record company, Megaforce Records,
Okay.
was at one of their shows, and he's like, "Hey, you guys are going to be fucking slam dunk. Why don't you sign up with my label, and we'll go from there." And these young bands, they don't know anything about. I mean, they didn't think about the fact that this guy was, self-financed. He's fucking using his dollars.
They're just saying, "Oh man, we're gonna get signed.
We're gonna get
this is
fucking
it, guys.
signed."
This is it."
Yeah, exactly. This is it. And so they signed with the newly established Megaforce Records,
Okay.
which Megadeth also signed with at a later time, and I think Slayer did as well. I think.
Now, is that when Kill 'Em All was produced?
Well,
Or
kinda.
Is that the Garage Days? So-
Yeah, this is the Garage Days, and they played for a little bit around local clubs and stuff like that. But then they flew to Rochester, New York, to record Kill 'Em All,
Okay.
and this is when the rift between Mustaine and the band started happening.
Okay.
Right? Mustaine started coming into the studio. He was very, inconsistent. He wasn't trustworthy, right?
Yeah.
They couldn't trust him to come in fucking worth a shit. And so this is where he gets booted. So about the third or fourth time he had come into the studio, they're like, "All right, dude, well, you're a fuck up. Like, you can't
Yeah.
even hold your shit together to,
We're just gonna
record
have
this record."
James do the vocals.
Right.
You're out.
Yeah, you're done, man. Like, you're done. And so
So
they
that's
booted
when
Mustaine.
Kirk. That's when Kirk was found in New York.
Yeah, same day. Same fucking day. Kirk Hammett was playing guitar for Exodus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was playing guitar for Exodus, and that same afternoon, they recruited.
I know one of Kirk's
Hammett.
main influences was a band called Rainbow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a
Yep.
pretty cool band. If you ever check those out, check
Yeah.
them out.
And it's funny too, because Kill 'Em All. You know what the name of that album was going to be?
What?
Metal Up Your Ass. That's
That
what it
was
was supposed to be.
That's why they have the T-shirt.
Hmm?
You never seen the Metallica T-shirts with the,
Uh-uh.
the knife in the hand coming out of the toilet, and
Uh-uh.
it says "Metal Up Your Ass"
Mm.
Metallica. Yeah, it used to be an old T-shirt from the '80s that they used to produce,
Oh, that's funny.
and now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it was supposed to be called. And the record company, even this one dude, he was like, "Nah, we're not going to call it Metal Up Your Ass." And so, Kill 'Em All.
Oh,
Yeah, Kill 'Em All. But there was a lot of tension very early on between Mustaine, because Mustaine essentially walked out with that mindset like you see in TV shows and shit, like, "You'll never be anything without me.
Yeah.
Fuck you, I'm
Yeah.
taking my guitar stand." You know what I mean? All
we'll
that-
see who the bigger rock star is.
Yeah, you ever seen that movie Rockstar?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was. "I'm taking my mic stand. That's my mic stand." That's kind of how it was. Like, Mustaine was pissed.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
understandable.
Yeah, and he also accused Hammett of stealing a shit ton of his guitar riffs.
Well, he might have.
He did actually, and funny enough, he stole the Four Horsemen.
Okay.
Dave Mustaine wrote, and all they did was like change the melody up a little bit and,
Yeah.
and I think the tuning.
Right.
And Mustaine, there was a huge lawsuit about that. That Mustaine actually won
Okay.
because Mustaine named it Mechanics and re-released it on one of his albums. And
Kirk Hammett, the guitar player, he uses the wah pedal way too much, but it sounds good.
one of them, Master of the Wah.
He is the master of the wah.
Yeah, Master of the Wah. Somebody else is the Master of the Wah. Tom Morello.
Yes.
Him and Tom Morello, could you just imagine them sitting at a cookout like just wow, wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow, wow, just, well, fuck your wow. Yeah, they're just sitting there fucking battling each other like Dragon Force, like that Dragon Force guitar battle. They're just sitting there
Yeah.
with two pedals just staring at each other. Wow, wow, wow. Should be funny as fuck.
Yeah.
But anyway, so 1983, Kill 'Em All's released. Not a huge success at first.
No, it was probably not until the next release. Then people went back and bought the first one.
Right. Kill 'Em All wasn't a huge release, but they did get a tour out of it. They were touring with their heroes at the time, which were Raven and then Venom. Venom is credited with being one of the first origins of black metal.
Yeah.
Not Norwegian black metal.
Yeah.
But black metal. So they were touring with those guys, and they made it to the Aardschok Festival in Zwolle, Netherlands, and they played in front of 7,000 people. So they got a little bit of face time with that, and like we talked about before, they started off in fucking Europe,
Yeah.
and that's when they started picking up speed, and so it was good. They were starting to pick up stuff, and so the very next year, Kill 'Em All was released in 1983, and then you've got Ride the Lightning.
Which is one of my favorite albums.
Yes, definitely one of my favorite albums. Load and Reload are my two favorite albums, but Ride the Lightning is a close second.
Yeah. Master of Puppets and Ride the Lightning.
Yeah.
All the early Metallica.
Yeah,
After Black, it kind of just went.
that's when I stopped listening.
No, you like Load.
Well, yeah. That's after Reload. I pretty much stopped listening.
I stopped at
Like Garage Inc.
After
and
Black, I stopped listening.
Death Magnetic and all that bull.
They came out. I mean, don't get me wrong, Black is a classic album, but they started selling out, in my opinion, when that after
Well,
that.
they
release.
followed the money.
Well, yeah. Can you blame them?
No, not at all. They followed the money. So with Ride the Lightning coming out in 1984, they had moved, from their Southern California over to New York. They didn't move to New York, but that's where they were recording at. They moved over to the Sweet Silence Studios in Copenhagen, which is where they started recording, I think, their next 2 or 3 albums. So Ride the Lightning came out in 1984, which it was the first time that Metallica made the top 100 album chart list.
Which Fade to Black is a masterpiece.
Oh, it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
It's an absolute great song. Very great song.
Yeah.
And funny enough, for all you people out there that collect vinyl, if you ever come across a Ride the Lightning in green, the album is green because they fucked up and printed a bunch of copies. I think it was like 500 to 1,000 copies of the album in green.
What is that worth?
A lot of money.
I have it.
Do you?
No.
I want it. I'll break it in your house. So yeah, if you guys come across a green Ride the Lightning album, snatch that bitch and hold on to it.
That's like the Led Zeppelin album with the Zeppelin on it. And it's orange, I think.
Oh.
They made some of those, and that's worth a shit ton of money.
Yeah, and then there's a Bob Dylan one that's worth a lot of money too. One of his albums is worth a shit ton of money because they released it wrong, and it was only like 100 of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Dave Mustaine actually received writing credits for Ride the Lightning and The Call of Cthulhu.
Good for him.
He received
With the Cthulhu, that's a great song too.
great song. And so also another transition for Metallica at this